Hi, everyone. Welcome to this month's update, Pathologists Overseas update. I'm very excited about it. I have Emily Glynn with me, Dr. Emily Glynn, Assistant Professor Emily Glynn at the University of Washington. Thank you for joining us, Emily.
Thanks for having me.
We just completed a 10-week laboratory quality management systems course that was we think was kind of a success. We had good attendance, etc. And Emily played a key role in that, and so I just wanted to talk to her about the course. Does that work, Emily?
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm excited to talk about it.
So let me start with a question. So tell us about this 10-week laboratory quality management course.
Yeah, so we partnered with Pathologists Overseas partnered with the American Society for Clinical Pathology to put on this course that was based off the 12 modules of the WHO Laboratory Quality Management Systems. So the 12 modules cover fundamentals of laboratory quality like process improvement, process control, assessments, personnel management, things like that. And we also added a leadership session on leadership that's not included in the 12 modules. So the course met for 10 weeks. There were 2 sessions each week that were 2 hours. So that's a total of 22-hour sessions. So 40 hours of course content total.
So it was 10 weeks, but it wasn't like every day for those.
No, it was Tuesday and Thursdays.
Okay.
For 2 hours each day.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. It was a lot. It was there was a lecture. So each day there was a lecture, and then we had each of the lecturers prepared a case. So sort of like a real life case that highlighted the core concepts of what they were presenting. So at the end of the course, participants received a certificate of completion. And yeah, it was great. I think.
So just a few more questions about the course. Now that we're talking about it. So was there a kind of a target audience, and also what time of the day was the course happening?
Great question. So yeah, so we really wanted to make it pretty broad because the quality essentials are, really meant for anybody in the laboratory. I mean, they're important things for everybody to know, and it's, the quality in the laboratory is everybody's job. And so we had pathologists, laboratory technicians, medical laboratory scientists, laboratory managers, registrars. So really anybody could attend.
Okay. So tell me, how was it advertised and how many people signed up?
Yeah, so we mainly advertised through word of mouth, and we sent the course. We just sent the course information and the registration link to just a few contacts, really not that many people. Despite only, kind of putting the word out to a few people, we got over 600 registrants in 72 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, okay. So the word spreads fast. Moral of the story. So clearly there is a ton of interest for this kind of content. And it doesn't take a lot of, fancy advertising to get interest. Unfortunately, but we recorded everything. So it's all still on the course website, so people can watch it. It's all open source.
Oh, good. So I'll add the course website to this video.
Oh, yeah.
So okay. So where were most of our registrants from? Were they mostly US or?
No, yeah. So over 90% were from Sub-Saharan Africa. So we had so there were 617 registrants before we closed the registration. And they were from 156 institutions from 24 different countries. And over 90% were from Sub-Saharan Africa. And of the total registrants, like around 50% were from Nigeria or Zambia. So about 250 from Nigeria or Zambia each. Yeah. So we must have made it on some listservs in Nigeria.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a big course, a big commitment, 10 weeks. It's a big commitment from both us and the participants. So did we do like a survey beforehand of the course participants?
We did, yeah. So we sent out sort of like a needs assessment just to see what people were where they were from, what institutions they represented, kind of what specialties they were. So that's where we got the country data as well as information about their sort of professional activities. So about 50% of the registrants were either consultant pathologists or medical/clinical laboratory scientists. And then we had a handful of registrants who were laboratory technicians and registrars. Most, like 70%, were from public hospitals.
Okay.
And then a smaller, so mostly public hospitals, and a smaller percent from like private labs and private hospitals and like NGO or mission hospitals. There was quite a spread of specialties, which was really cool to see. So we had, about even numbers of histology, molecular, blood bank, micro, and chemical pathology, and a smaller number of folks from other laboratory specialties as well. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's awesome. How did we find teachers for the course?
So, you and I and other folks in Pathologists Overseas gave lectures.
Yes.
And then we had a few connections to folks who had given this lecture before. So Jeanette Guarnar, who's a pathologist at Emory, she gave a few lectures. She's done this course before. And then one really cool thing about the virtual course, which I loved, is that we actually were able to engage a lot of our volunteers. So we have historically been a very kind of on the ground, in country organization, really sending volunteers to other countries to, build capacity or fill in service gaps, doing all sorts of activities, pathology and laboratory related activities. But with the pandemic, we really couldn't do that. We can't really send people anywhere. And so it's really been a great opportunity to engage our volunteers doing these sort of virtual educational activities.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so can you want to tell us anything of interest that happened during the course? Was there anything?
Yeah. So ultimately, about like 90 to 100 people attended each session. So
okay.
So I think
fewer than registered.
And I think more people ended up filling out the post-course survey. So I think some people ended up watching it online because the timing, there was like some difficulties with the timing. So I think that was one lesson that we learned, is that we had so many people register. So we ended up using like a webinar platform that was allowed for less participation from the audience. Like they couldn't talk during the webinar, within the webinar format, they couldn't share their video. And so it was just a little bit harder. So despite that, though, they could answer questions or ask questions in the chat. And I would say there were so many questions. I mean, really insightful questions, clearly demonstrating people were engaged in the content. Some of our lecturers were able to set up the polling within the Zoom. So they were, they'd ask a question live, and then a set of multiple choice questions would come up, and then participants could choose, and we could see in real time, how well they did. And so, a few of our lecturers did that, and that was really successful. We had a lot of participation from that. So I think, one of the things I was pleasantly surprised by was how engaged people were, given that this format didn't, necessarily allow for that much participation.
Okay, so I have two more questions. So one is, did you do a survey at the end? How was the course received?
We did. Yeah, we did do a survey at the end, and it was, overwhelmingly positive. We did both a survey, a post-course survey, and a post-course assessment. So there were pre-course questions and post-course questions. So, similar to the registration survey, most of the participants were from Nigeria or Zambia, about 50%, I think it was very close. And around 75% were from public hospitals. And again, similarly, about 50% were either consultant pathologists or medical or clinical laboratory scientists. And again, a really widespread of various specialties within pathology and laboratory medicine. And everyone had really positive feedback. There, over 90% of participants felt that their comfort level and knowledge of the within each of the 12 modules increased because of the course, and were interested in taking another virtual course. We got a lot of interest, specifically in process improvement and leadership, which I think is super
That
interesting.
that's super interesting. So process
Yeah.
improvement and leadership were the two things
Mhm.
people wanted to learn more of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go
So,
figure. Yeah, that's awesome. That's so
so I,
so okay. So now what? Now, so what are Pathologists Overseas plans going forward? How are we going to fill this need since we've tapped into it?
yeah, yeah, and I think this really has shown us how, as excited as I think both you and I and everyone else in Pathologists Overseas is to be back kind of on the ground, in country, meeting people in person. I
Yeah.
think this virtual course has really made us realize that we can also achieve our mission of, building sustainable pathology and laboratory capacity through education,
Yes.
and educational initiatives
Yeah.
on a pretty large scale, and without necessarily needing to be on the ground.
Hmm.
And we're able to like engage our volunteers and keep people active and make connections and build a community in a way I think at the beginning of the pandemic maybe we weren't sure we were going to be able to do or felt maybe a little discouraged about. So I think that's been one of the really positive outcomes of this course. And in terms of next steps, I think our goal is to do more of them. Obviously, we have some ideas in the pipeline. One would be to do a similar course based on the WHO modules, but engage more lecturers from sub-Saharan Africa. So
Okay.
more pathologists and laboratory professionals from sub-Saharan Africa to teach the course.
Okay. That's
So I
great.
think that'd be
Yeah.
a great way we could facilitate kind of exchange of ideas and knowledge, and again trying to build that community. And then another idea would be to do the course in Spanish.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Yeah, yeah. That's a
yeah,
great
so
idea.
we could expand our footprint outside of sub-Saharan Africa and do
Yeah.
a Spanish language course. So that would
Yeah.
be another idea.
And even, I mean,
Um,
so there's a lot of ground to be covered, right? So there's a lot of specialized topics that we could cover in anatomic pathology for sure, and in clinical pathology. Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure, yeah. So
Yeah.
doing more of like a deep dive into some of
Yeah.
these topics that folks expressed interest in, like leadership,
Yeah.
something that isn't really, covered a lot in
Yes.
traditional,
Yes.
pathology and laboratory. I do have to give a shout out to Annalise Lejeune, who was, she was our operations manager at the before the course launch and really did a lot of the heavy lifting in getting the course site up, organizing the content, recruiting the lecturers, sending out the pre-course surveys. So she really deserves a lot of credit for this
Yes, I agree.
course. Yeah. And, I think our job now is to kind of secure some additional funding so we can, you know, Annalise has sadly moved on. Sadly for us, good for her, moved on to a more permanent position. But for us to secure some more funding to support another staff member to, who can help with these efforts.
Yeah.
We're
Well,
also accepting donations
yes.
from our volunteer network. Should you be inclined to donate to the
I didn't know you were
Pathologists
going to talk about donations, but yes, yes, we're accepting donations. Yeah, yes. Well, thank you so much, Emily. This was awesome.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
having me. All right, bye.